10-Minute Jazz Lesson Podcast, episode 331. Hey everybody, welcome back to episode 331 of the 10-Minute Jazz Lesson Podcast. So happy to have you here and excited to do the second episode in our series on the great trumpeter Clifford Brown. Today we're going to be diving into some delayed resolution and the way that Clifford Brown does it and the way that it's a little bit different than Charlie Parker. So really excited for this episode. There's a lot to dig into. But before we jump in, as usual, just wanted to remind you this is a listener-supported podcast, which means it's people like you that keep this show coming at you week in and week out. And the way to support us is in the form of a small monthly donation on the Patreon platform. So to find out how to do that and to get yourself signed up, go over to our website, 10minutejazzlesson.com, click on one of the Patreon banners, and you can get yourself signed up today. You do get a PDF and audio examples with every single episode, and all of the episodes that we've ever done actually live on that site, all the back episodes. So wanted to give a quick shout out to some new patrons. Thank you to our new $5 patrons, Neil, David, and A. Galeris. And thank you to our new $3 patrons, Shannon and Roy. Welcome to the 10-Minute Jazz Lesson family. I hope you enjoy all those materials that are housed over there on the site. So again, if you want to become one of those supporters, make sure the podcast keeps coming out each and every week. Go over to our website, 10minutejazzlesson.com, click on one of the Patreon banners, and get yourself signed up today. All right, let's dive into the episode. So we've got 3 new examples for you this week, and this is something that we talked about when we did the Charlie Parker episode, but I want to point out the differences. So we talked about with Charlie Parker the fact that he loves to put chord tones on the strong harmonic beats, which are 1 and 3. And that is a true bebop tenet. That's something that bebop is really built around. It provides a certain clarity and a certain method to the madness that is bebop sometimes. So for the most part, Clifford Brown really also observes these rules. But one thing that I want to talk about is how Clifford Brown loves to do delayed resolutions. So in something like a 2-5-1, instead of on the first beat of the 1 chord being a very consonant note and releasing the dissonance, Clifford Brown likes to delay that a little bit, creating more interesting lines because you don't actually know where he's going to resolve the chord. And that keeps you guessing, and it keeps you listening, and it keeps his solos really, really interesting. So we talked about Charlie Parker doing this as well. But the thing about Charlie Parker is that he would typically maybe delay the resolution by a half of a beat. So instead of resolving on 1, he would resolve on the and of 1, or maybe on 2. But what we're going to see with Clifford is that he stretches them out way, way longer. So sometimes he'll wait until beat 3 to resolve the chord. In one of these examples, he waits an entire measure before he finally hits his resolution points. And I think that's really interesting to look at the innovations of Clifford Brown and say, yeah, a lot of the playing was based in that bebop language that Charlie Parker was really responsible for, but Clifford took it and made it his own. These slight differences really provide us with a very, very different sound and a very interesting way of maybe approaching bebop a little bit differently. So let's take a peek at our first example. Now, what you're going to notice on your PDF is that I have labeled in blue where the delayed resolution is. So the blue notes on your PDF are basically saying these are the notes that Clifford is using to delay the resolution. And then the note that you see in red will be the true resolution of the line, the release of that tension that he's creating. So I've tried to make it as easy as possible by giving you those color coding, and you can look at them and see very, very clearly where this is happening, and that will allow you to study what he's doing before he actually resolves the chord. So let's get into example number 1. 1, 2, a 1, 2, 3, 4. So this is just a regular old 2-5-1 in the key of concert A flat. And what we see him playing over the 2 and the 5 is pretty standard fare, right? It's interesting, but it's nothing crazy. There's not any like crazy chord substitutions going on or anything like that. Where the interesting part is when it drops into the A flat chord, the 1 chord. So what you will notice is that he does not play a chord tone, and in fact plays non-harmonic tones on beats 1 and 2. We see him going back and forth between a concert F and a concert E natural, and that E natural, it definitely doesn't fit in the A flat major 7 chord. And then finally on beat 3, he drops into an E flat, which is where the whole thing resolves. So I want to listen to it one more time, but I want you to think this time, all right, how does it sound when the rhythm section is playing the 1 chord, but he is not necessarily playing the 1 chord with them yet until beat 3. Makes the line a little bit more interesting. It makes the line a little bit more compelling. Let's listen to it again and really listen for that delayed resolution. 1, 2, a 1, 2, 3, 4. Just love the way that sounds, especially that concert E natural over the top of it. Just such a cool sound, such a cool way to make a pretty standard line more interesting. All right, let's go on to example number 2. So this one's a little bit longer. Let's check it out first and then we'll talk about it. 1, 2, a 1, 2, 3, 4. So this one's really interesting because there's 2 spots where he's really delaying that resolution. So the first one is in the 3rd bar, and again, it's a 2-5 in the key of concert A flat. And what we notice is that on the downbeat of that 3rd bar, we get this little enclosure of the 5th. Now you could say, all right, well, he does resolve on the 2nd beat. And you would be right about that because he is technically playing the 5th, so that fits. But I think where he's really meaning to resolve is on beat 3 of that 3rd bar where he plays the 3rd. So I want you to take a look at that PDF, and I'm happy to be told that I'm wrong. Yes, it does resolve on beat 2. But I don't know, my ears just hear it as resolving on beat 3. Because it's a stronger beat, and I think there's still a lot of scale-wise, step-wise motion, I hear it as resolving on beat 3, but we can definitely talk about that. And then the other place that it happens is in the last measure of this particular lick, and this is where we see him do something that Charlie Parker would do. He delays the resolution by a half of a beat. So we see him doing a chromatic approach to the 3rd, but the chromatic approach happens on the downbeat of the measure, and then we see the 3rd happen on the and of 1. And I think that's something that's more typical of Charlie Parker and some of the stuff that we took a look at last month. So there's line number 2. It's a little bit longer, but I chose it because there's actually 2 instances of delayed resolutions in that one. All right, let's move on to line number 3, and I think that this one's the most interesting and the most adventurous. So this is a 2-5 in the key of concert B flat. Let's check this one out. 1, 2, a 1, 2, 3, 4. One, two, a 1, 2, 3, 4. So that one's pretty wild, right? Look at the beginning of the 2 chord. He's playing some really, really out stuff there. That's not what we're going to look at because we want to keep it kind of focused and we want to look at those delayed resolutions, but it's pretty wild what he's playing over that concert C minor 7 chord. That could be something you could dig into yourself. But we want to look at the 3rd bar of the line. Okay, we're supposed to be resolving to a concert B flat major chord, but what we see is this rambling, chromatic, enclosure kind of line. And again, this is something that could be argued. If you look at the and of 1, yes, it is the root. If you look at beat 3, yes, it is the root again. But if you look at the overall structure of the measure, I don't think he's thinking about resolving all the way until the downbeat of the 4th measure. When I hear this line in measure 3, that strikes me as all leading toward that concert F in bar 4. Nothing about the sound of this strikes me as, yes, we are resolved. So even though there are some chord tones in the measure, the way that the whole thing is structured makes me think, all right, he's not resolving until that F on the downbeat of the 4th bar. And I love this because this is really taking it to the extreme. We have 2 bars of the 1 chord, and he's waiting until the downbeat of the 2nd bar to resolve. So talk about a delayed resolution. He's delaying it by a full measure, and it just makes the line so interesting. And again, going back to that first measure of the line, it's pretty clear that he might be doing something very adventurous. Just judging by the notes that he's playing over the 2 chord, we might be clued into the fact that he wants to get outside a little bit. He wants to do something a little bit non-traditional, a little bit outside of the box. And then he proceeds to prove that as he plays through the 2-5-1. So just absolutely genius. And it really makes me think about how I can make my playing more interesting by thinking outside of the box a little bit. And one of those ways that you can think outside of the box is to delay your resolutions. I would not suggest necessarily diving into that until you do actually have your resolutions on beat 1 together. And then as soon as you can really reliably do that with good voice leading, then you can kind of move on to some of these more advanced ideas where we're thinking in completely different directions. So let me know if you have any questions. Remember, you can grab the PDF with the color coding by going to our website, 10minutejazzlesson.com, clicking on one of the Patreon banners, and you get yourself signed up for instant access to this PDF and every single other PDF that we've ever done. Thank you to everybody over there that's supporting us. We've got over 350 members of the Patreon, and you are all the people that keep this show coming at you. So thank you. All right. We'll see you next week with another brand new episode. Hope everybody's staying safe and healthy, and have a great weekend. Talk to you soon. Bye.